Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to Asphalian's webinar, International Expansion in the UK Pharmaceutical Market, News and Opportunities. Before starting, just a couple of things to take into consideration about the webinar. The webinar will last approximately 30 minutes. In case you have any questions, please submit them in the chat. If we have time, we will answer them at the end of the session. We will answer first the questions we received by email, and at a later stage, the ones in the chat. In case there is no time left, we will send them by email and distribute them also among the attendees. We would also like to note that we will send you the presentation after the webinar. And now it's my pleasure to introduce Lydia Canovas, who will be presenting the webinar. Lydia, please, whenever you are ready.
Thank you, Lydia. Okay, so good afternoon, everyone. I'm Lydia Canovas, General Manager of Regulatory Affairs at Asphalion. It is my pleasure to be here today, and thank you to all you for attending this webinar on the update of the regulatory landscape in the United Kingdom. Can you please, okay, the next slide. For those in the audience who are not familiar with Asphalion, we are an international consultancy company specializing in regulatory, scientific, and safety services. Founded in the year 2000, we have offices in Barcelona, Madrid, Munich, and London, and a team of over 180 team members. Next, please. Our services include regulatory and scientific strategy during development, medical, scientific, and CMC writing, global submissions, regulatory operations, publishing, and data management, as well as life cycle management, pharmacovigilance, and medical device support. This is a representation of our journey since the foundation of Asphalion, of the company. And throughout our journey, we have consistently offered regulatory and pharmacovigilance support in the United Kingdom, including many procedures and scientific advice given by MHRA before and after Brexit in 2021. And next, please. And well, why this webinar today? Indeed, this year we have important updates in the United Kingdom regulatory landscape. We have two major factors that are the, on the one hand, the new International Recognition Procedure, IRP, launched on the 1st of January this year, and also the Windsor framework that will be operating from January 2025. We will summarize briefly these two initiatives along with other aspects that we should consider in our regulatory strategies. Well, after this introduction, my colleague Mireia Roig, Regulatory Affairs Associate Manager, will now explain the details. Then, Mireia, please, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Lydia, and good afternoon, everyone. So as already introduced by Lydia, we will go through the international procedures that are currently available in the UK. We will focus mainly in international recognition route, which is the new route starting from January 2024. But we will also review other international procedures that were already in place in the UK, that are the Access Consortium and Project Orbis. In the second part of the webinar, we will review the news of the regulatory landscape in the UK. As already said by Lydia, this will be mainly the Windsor framework that will be implemented next year. So before we start with these international procedures, I think that it is important to review these concepts that I think that are key to understand the international procedures. So when we talk about reliance, it means that a regulatory authority will take into account and give significant weight to assessments performed by another regulator. But at the end, they will make their own decision and their own assessment. When we talk about recognition, it means that the regulatory authority will accept the regulatory assessment and decision of another regulator. And finally, if we talk about work sharing, it means that 2 or more regulatory authorities will collaborate in order to share their knowledge and to make a single assessment and a single decision for a same product. So now that we have seen these concepts, I will start with the international recognition procedure. When the UK left the European Union, the MHRA put in place these reliance procedures, the European Commission reliance procedure and the MRDC reliance procedure, that allowed the MHRA to rely on authorizations made in Europe by the EMA or the national competent authorities. These reliance procedures were in place in January 2021 until December 2023. This means that we can no longer apply for these reliance procedures. But those submissions that were made before December 2023 and that are still ongoing will continue to follow this reliance procedure until end of procedure. The reason of this deadline, it is because the MHRA has improved this procedure with the new international recognition procedure that will replace these reliance procedures. So here we can already see the difference that we have seen in the previous slide between reliance and recognition. So the international recognition procedure is available since January 2024. And additionally, it includes additional reference regulators. So now the MHRA can recognize authorizations not only from Europe, but also from other countries, such as Switzerland, Canada, the USA, Australia, Singapore, and Japan. So the IRP is open to applicants who have received an authorization from a reference regulator. The reference regulator are the countries that we have seen in the previous slides. The reference authorization must be the same medicinal product. This means that it has the same qualitative and quantitative composition. It needs to be a full standalone review by the reference regulator, so we cannot use a previous reliance or recognition. And it has to be granted in the last 10 years. The IRP can be used for this legal basis, so basically all of them except for well-established use, traditional herbal medicinal products, and homeopathics. The applicant for an IRP must be established in the UK or in the European Union. And it is expected that it will be the same company or belong to the same legal group of companies. But in certain circumstances, it can also be a third party. The IRP can be used for new marketing authorization applications, but also for the product life cycle, such as variations, line extensions, and renewals. And it's important to know that it is also possible to start from this point. So we can apply for a variation via IRP, even if the initial marketing authorization application was not done by IRP. So before we apply for an IRP, we will need to do some pre-submission steps. We will have to fill in the eligibility form. And depending on the responses that we provide in this form, it will be determined if we are eligible or not for IRP. If we are eligible for IRP, we might have to follow either recognition A or recognition B. We will be assigned to recognition A if the reference authorization is less than 2 years old, and if none of the criteria for recognition B is met. In certain conditions, our application might require triage. This means that the MHRA will need to evaluate which recognition can be followed for our product. This is the reason why it is recommended to submit this eligibility form at least 6 weeks before the planned submission date, because this triage could take a time. So the recognition A is a 60 days calendar with no clock stop. If major objections are identified within the assessment, this recognition A could be switched to a recognition B. And the recognition B is 110 calendar days with a clock stop in day 70. So both of them are shorter than the normal national procedure. We have seen that we can go for recognition A or recognition B. The criteria for recognition B is that if the reference authorization is more than 2 years old, or if any of these criteria applies. There is an extensive list of criteria for recognition B that we will not review in this presentation, but for example, a criteria for recognition B could be that the manufacturing process is slightly different, or if we are adding a releaser or a different manufacturer, or if the reference authorization does not have a risk management plan approved. Okay, so when we apply for an international recognition procedure, we will have a dossier approved by the reference regulator, and we will need to prepare a cover letter. This cover letter will be complex, as there are some statements that have to be written in this cover letter. And additionally, we will need to attach the eligibility form that we have done in the previous steps. It is important to note that there are national requirements. For this reason, Module 1 will be different from the dossiers, which is our reference. And also, it might be possible to need some adaptations to Module 3. For example, for a UK marketing authorization, we will need to refer to European Pharmacopoeia or British Pharmacopoeia. So if the dossier that we have as a reference refers to other pharmacopoeias, this will need to be amended. In this IRP dossier, we will need to add also all the assessment reports and the final decision from the reference regulator. And a last consideration is that we need to have a consolidated dossier, an ECD sequence for this IRP, a single ECD sequence. So if we have different variations in the reference authorization, we will need to make this consolidation. It is also important to note that apart from the international recognition procedure guidelines, we must refer to the human medicine regulations of the MHRA. So these guidelines need to be read in conjunction. For example, there are some lists of approved countries. In the first list is the list of approved countries for import. This means that the release of a UK marketing authorization can be done in Europe or in the UK. The second list is the list of approved countries for batch testing. So the batch testing will be acceptable if it is done in the UK, in the European Union, and also in other countries that have similar regulatory requirements. That could be Australia, Canada, Israel, Japan, New Zealand, Switzerland, or the USA. And finally, there's also a list of approved countries for manufacture of active substances. So we'll need to check if our IRP application meets these requirements. With regards to national requirements, and specifically for generic and hybrid applications, we need to know that the bioequivalence, the MHRA will accept data from bioequivalence study performed in any country. But if the comparator product is sourced from outside of the Great Britain, we might need to demonstrate identicality or representativeness to the Great Britain reference medicinal product. This can be done by written confirmation in some cases, but in many of the cases, analytical testing will be required. The pharmacovigilance requirements for an IRP are the same as they are essentially the same as any marketing authorization in the UK. We need to have a QPPV established in Europe or in UK. If we decide to have a European QPPV, then we will need to appoint a national contact person for pharmacovigilance. And for all UK marketing authorization, we also need to have a UK PSMF that must be accessible electronically from the UK. So now that we have seen the international recognition procedure, we will briefly review the other international procedures that are available in the UK. The Access Consortium is a work-sharing procedure. We have seen at the beginning of the presentation that work-sharing means that 2 or more regulatory authorities will collaborate in order to make a single assessment. So applications will be submitted simultaneously to at least 2 of these agencies. And module 2 to 5 will be the same for all of them. If there are differences, we will need to identify them in a summary of differences. Module 1 will be different for all of them since there might be national requirements for all of them. And in some specific cases, a priority review could be applied. The procedural timelines will depend on our application, if it is a new active substance or if it is a generic or a biosimilar. At the right side of the presentation, we have an hypothetical case where we can see how these dossiers will be reviewed. In the case of new active substances, the different modules are assigned to one of the regulatory authorities. So, for example, in this example, the UK would review Module 4 and Switzerland Module 5. But Module 1 will be reviewed by all of them, as we have already said that they have a specific national requirements. For generic medicines, it is slightly different. In this case, we have a reference agency and concerned agencies. It is a sort of European DCP. So the reference regulatory will assess all the modules, and the concerned reference, the concerned agencies, will rely on this assessment. Again, Module 1 will be reviewed by all of them at national level. And the other international procedure is the Project Orbis. In this case, the Project Orbis is coordinated by the FDA and is specific for oncology products. It includes Canada, Brazil, Switzerland, Israel, Singapore, Australia, and the UK. In this case, it is not a work-sharing procedure because even if they collaborate, the assessment is done by the different agencies. So each country remains fully independent on their final regulatory decision. This means that there might be difference, for example, in the type of approval or the approved indications. The Project Orbis, as I have already said, is for oncology products and can be used for new marketing authorization applications and also for new indications. Depending on the type of submission, we will follow one of these routes. We will not go through it, but if you have any question, just let us know. So now that we have reviewed the international recognition, the international procedures, we will review what are the main changes in the regulatory landscape in the UK. So the current situation that we have in the UK is that there is a Northern Ireland Protocol in place. This agreement was signed by the UK and the European Commission on January 2021, and it established that Northern Ireland even if being part of the UK, it follows European legislation. It is included in the European Union single market, and it follows European legislation for medicines. This means that European centrally authorized procedures automatically approve in Northern Ireland. And also that European DCPs and MRPs can include Northern Ireland as a concerned member state. This arrangement has caused some complexities in Northern Ireland because of the transport requirements between Great Britain and Northern Ireland, and some other problems. So in order to solve this, from January 2025, the UK will implement this Windsor framework. And with this new arrangement, the MHRA will take control again for the medicines approval in the whole of the UK, including Great Britain and Northern Ireland. This means that starting from January 2025, centrally authorized procedures will not include Northern Ireland anymore. European DCPs and MRPs, it will still be possible to include Northern Ireland as a concerned member state. So what is the regulatory impact of this Windsor framework to our new or already approved marketing authorizations? So if Northern Ireland is no longer included in centrally authorized procedures, what happens to my centrally authorized product that included Northern Ireland, right? So if we have a centrally authorized procedure, we now have a PLNI. This means an authorization valid in Northern Ireland only, approved by the EMA. And if we followed the Reliance procedure, we also have a PLGB valid only in Great Britain for the same product. So from January 2025, the PLNI will be removed from the centrally authorized procedure, and the PLGB will convert to a UK-wide marketing authorization. The license number, the marketing authorization number starting by PLGB will be maintained. So this nomenclature will no longer mean that it is available in GB only. If we have a DCP with Northern Ireland as a concerned member state, we might have two different options. It is possible that we have PLNI within the DCP and a PLGB aligned to this DCP. In this case, we will be able to follow one of these two options. If we follow option A, we will eliminate the PLNI from the DCP, and the PLGB will automatically convert to a UK-wide marketing authorization. If we follow option B, we will retain PLNI within the DCP. This will be valid in Northern Ireland only, and our marketing authorization will not be valid in the rest of the UK. It is also possible that we have a DCP with a PLNI within the DCP and that we do not have a PLGB. In this case, if no actions are taken, the PLNI will remain the same, so valid in Northern Ireland only and included in the DCP. And finally, it is also possible that we have a national procedure. In this case, we might have a PL valid UK-wide or a PLGB valid in Great Britain only. In the first case, it will remain the same. And in the second case, as we have already said, the PLGB will convert automatically to a UK-wide marketing authorization. So here, just as a reminder, the current situation is that those marketing authorizations starting by PL are valid UK-wide. Those starting by PLGB are valid in Great Britain only, and those starting by PLNI are valid in Northern Ireland only. So from January 2025, these change a little bit, and the PLGB will no longer mean that it is only available in Great Britain, but UK-wide. And for new marketing authorization applications, we have already said that centrally authorized products will no longer be authorized by the EMA within the centralized procedure. So now if we want to register a centrally authorized product in UK, we will need to go through MHRA directly by applying for a PL. We can do so via an IRP, an international recognition procedure, if we have obtained previously a centrally authorized product authorization in the European Union. For non-centrally authorized products, currently we can apply for a UK-wide authorization or a PLGB or a PLNI. From January 2025, as we have already said, it will no longer be possible to apply for a PLGB. So we will need to apply for a UK-wide marketing authorization or a PLNI if we go through MRP or DCP. Okay, so if this was not enough, there are also labeling and packaging requirements from January 2025. All medicinal products in the UK will need to carry this UK-only label on the secondary packaging starting from January 2025. And the same can be applied via a sticker for a limited time period of 6 months. After this deadline, it will be required to have it in the secondary packaging printed. Additionally, the European Union Falsified Medicines Directive will no longer apply in Northern Ireland, so it will need to be either removed or covered for any medicine in the UK. Any stock in existing packaging already placed on the market in Northern Ireland or Great Britain before January 2025 can continue to be supplied to patients until the date of their expiry. These changes in the mockups have to be notified to the MHRA before the 31st of December 2024. We can add this notification to any type 1B or type 2 variation. But if we do not have any type 1B or type 2 variation planned for this year, we will need to submit a self-certification notification. These changes in the labeling and packaging in the UK mean that we can no longer have joint European Union and UK packs starting from January 2025. So the conclusions of this presentation is that the UK market is constantly evolving and offers significant challenges to the pharmaceutical companies, but also a lot of opportunities. The possible routes of registration of medicines in the UK have increased considerably in the last years. And in particular, the recognition pathways make the registration in the UK very attractive. The registration strategy becomes also retrospective and with the analysis of the existing portfolio of already registered medicines. This is translated to an opportunity for pharmaceutical companies to grow in the UK and also globally. We think of other procedures such as the Access Consortium or Project Orbis. Okay. Okay, sorry.
Sorry, Mireia, thank you so much for this clear explanation of such complex topics. So we have now a set of questions that we already received. I see that we have in the chat many questions too. So maybe we can try to respond quickly to the questions received and then address the questions that are in the chat.
Perfect.
Okay, so there was one question about the fees that are payable to the MHRA to conduct an IRP.
Yes, so the fees for an IRP are stated in the MHRA guidelines. It will depend if we go for recognition A or recognition B. Of course, if we go for recognition A, the fees will be lower. And in addition, the MHRA also differentiates between major, complex, or standard applications. And the fees are higher in the case of major applications. We understand major applications for new active substances. The complex applications are those that are not major, but that have also some particularities, such as that they have a new excipient, or they have a different administration route of similar medicinal products, etc. And there is the standard application that is the one that it's not major or complex. And well, it is also important to note that the fees for the UK marketing authorization, including IRP, they do not need to be paid in advance. So we will not include the proof of payment in the application, and we will receive an invoice from the MHRA afterwards.
Okay, thanks. So the second one is whether an IRP can be considered for a marketing authorization older than 10 years. And Mireia, I can take it. So,
okay.
Yeah, the guidance mentioned that there is the possibility of an extension or an exception to the 10 years rule. So currently, there is no experience to say whether a marketing authorization granted for more than 10 years can qualify for such exception. We can only assume that exceptional circumstances could be, for example, when there is an unmet medical need, or there is a risk of shortage or a shortage, or there is an interest on the product for the UK population. But as I say, these circumstances qualifying for an exception of the 10 years rule should be discussed and agreed with the MHRA beforehand. Well, the next question. Is it possible for Mireia? Is it possible to release medicines with the UK only label before January 2025?
Okay, this will depend on each specific case. If we have a UK-wide marketing authorization, we can already apply the UK-only label. But of course, we cannot disapply the safety features because it is still required in Northern Ireland. For Great Britain only marketing authorizations, we can already apply the UK-only label. For Great Britain, the European Directive of Safety Features is not applicable, so we can keep it as it is. But for Northern Ireland, of course, it will not be possible to include this label before January 2025, because until that date, Northern Ireland still follows European legislation, so it is not possible for Northern Ireland.
All right, thanks. Another question we received is for the IRP. It seems that the applicant in some cases can be a third party, and what is meant by a third party in this context. I can take this as well. Yes, so the MHRA expects, in principle, that the applicant will be the same company as the holder in the reference regulator authorization. However, it is said that third parties can be accepted if it can be demonstrated that this third party can manage the information about the product in order to proceed with the application. To tell the truth, at this moment, we are uncertain of what type of proof we can show or that proof would be needed or a type of agreement between the third party and the holder in the reference regulator, but we are working to get more clarity on it. Next is for generics. If bioequivalence has not been conducted against the reference medicinal product in the UK, if in this case the dossier would be acceptable. May I respond, Mireia?
Okay, please go.
Thanks. So, well, the MHRA accepts bioequivalence conducted with a foreign reference product if it is identical or representative of the reference medicinal product in the UK. However, if this reference medicinal product is not sourced from the UK, we will need to demonstrate this identicality or representativeness. There is a detailed guidance explaining how identicality and representativeness can be demonstrated. In some cases, written confirmation might be sufficient. In other cases, we will need to conduct analytical testing. And the last question we had in the previous communications was, and it regards also Windsor framework. For you, Mireia,
Okay.
will it still be possible to have joint packs for Ireland and Northern Ireland after January 2025?
Okay, this was already addressed in the presentation, so we cannot have joint European and UK packs anymore, because now Northern Ireland will follow UK legislation. So, for example, the safety features will not be applied in Northern Ireland, but it will in Europe. So it will not be possible anymore to have joint packs.
Okay. Well, I think that we have 7 minutes left, so we have time to address some questions from the chat. So we have a first question from Helen Crowley. So what about licenses with well-established use legal basis? These are not covered by IRP and must be submitted for purely UK national marketing authorization application. Well,
Yes.
do I need to address it, or Mireia?
Please go ahead. Yes.
Okay, Helen. Yes, that's true. That well-established use applications are not covered by the IRP, so other routes should be sought. For instance, a national marketing authorization application, or if we have this is maybe the only one today. We have a second question sent by Deborah Pellegrin. Deborah, if a product is granted in different referent countries. For instance, EU, US, is the applicant the one choosing the reference country in an IRP?
In an IRP, we do not have a reference country. We, as an applicant, we will need to choose our application and then submit it to the MHRA. So in example, if we have an application, a dossier in Europe and the US, and we want to have it recognized in UK, we will use the European one because it is more similar to the UK one. I'm not sure if I addressing the question exactly. This was the meaning of the question.
Well, we can elaborate on this later and discuss with Deborah what are the drivers for choosing one reference regulator or another. Maybe now we do not have the time to go in more depth. But it is important what you say, Mireia, that the more similar to the UK dossier and the less difference, the better. So,
exactly.
The next question is also asked by Helen Crowley. Are the assessment reports and the final reference regulator decision submitted outside the ECTD marketing authorization application sequence?
No, they need to be included in this ECTD sequence.
Yes, there is a place, if I remember correctly, in Module 1, where we can put the responses and questions received by
Assessment
authorities.
report decisions, yes. This will be included in the additional data folder of Module 1. Yeah.
And what is important as well, according to our experience, so it's of these less than 2 months, is that the cover letter is very clear about where the information is placed. The next one is also by Helen. If the API is made by a manufacturer in China, the marketing authorization application can't be submitted via IRP. So maybe Mireia, can you comment on that?
Yes, in these specific cases, it will need to be evaluated by the MHRA, but as I have already shown, the human regulation in the MHRA in the UK established a list of approved countries, right? So China is not included in the list of approved countries for active substances. This is because they have different regulatory requirements.
In any case, the advice in this case is to negotiate with MHRA what the conditions or arrangements can be made. We have cases as well of upcoming IRPs for clients with countries outside the list. And well, what we are doing is to try to well, put together strategies or to negotiate what can be done or what kind of arrangements can be concluded. A question by Adam. Adam, thank you for your question. Thank you. This is great. Thank you. I think you say that an IRP approved drug cannot be directly imported from the North America, only via a Europe-based source. Please, can you clarify? Thanks. This is the same as the previous question. So we have to say that we have now more questions than answers. We have to make sure that what use is going to do to make the MHRA of these lists and how these import and manufacturing issues can be overcome. A question by Javier Martinez. Javier, thank you for your question. In the IRP, MHRA recognized the assessment of the reference regulator. The reference regulator also accept MHRA assessment.
It is independent. I mean, the reference regulator will have their own approval, and then you will approve this in the UK, but they are different countries, and the UK could not approve the authorization. The reference regulator authorization would remain without changes, right?
So to speak, to explain it, thank you, Mireia, to explain it in another words. There is no feedback from the reference regulator to the UK. So there is no, it is not, there is nothing in the procedure that makes the reference regulator has to accept the assessment of UK, if I'm not wrong. The other thing is that we have been asked if the procedure can go the other way around. So other reference regulators are not affected. The reference regulators are not affected by the assessments of the UK according to the procedure. And there is no opposite procedure. So we have been asked by a company based in Canada, willing to accept, willing to start IRP if after the recognition in UK, this authorization can be extended to Europe. So it is not possible today. We have more questions about how, Adam, if there is a view on how this could affect parallel trade, or could a wholesaler add a UK-only sticker to a Greek-Portuguese supply at import? Maybe this is for you, Mireia.
Can you repeat the question, please?
Yeah.
So excuse me, for parallel import, the requirement to add a sticker is not it is not required. So I think that the question was referring to this.
So if a wholesaler could add a UK only sticker to a Greek Portuguese supply at import.
Yes, until you have 6 months of transition period where you can add a sticker. Afterwards, you will need to print into the secondary packaging.
Okay. Well, I think that we are quite out of time, exceeding 4 minutes. Maybe we have time for only one more question.
Okay.
Question as well for from Helen Crowley, for the FMD safety features. Is there an option to leave on the UK carton and just not upload the codes to the EU hub? In effect, they become meaningless. So
no, you still need to remove or cover them.
Well, I think that we have covered most of the questions. We are now 5 minutes extra time. So we will try to respond to the questions that have not been responded yet in writing. So thank you very much. Thank you especially to Mireia for this excellent presentation. Thank you
Thank
to
you
all
all.
you for attending and for your questions.
Thank you. Have a good afternoon, everyone.